ever get curious about the vision that you have for your life? I think when we get curious about what we want and start asking ourselves different questions, our path starts to change. It becomes more clear. We get clarity on what we're doing and exactly why it's important to us. It's so important to know the why behind your what, right? What do you want and why is that important to you? So I think often we can get overwhelmed, right? We have this big vision, but we don't know how we're going to achieve that. But once we start getting curious about what that is, getting curious about what's on the other side of where we are, things start to change. And so can we think about the what ifs? Can we get curious about this? I had one of our mentors position a question to me recently that changed the trajectory about where I am going and my vision for the future. And the question is, if you had no fear and unlimited resources, what would you do today? How would that change what you're doing if you had no fear and you had unlimited resources to do what you wanted to do? What would that be? And so when we think about it, maybe we would rest, right? Maybe we would take a vacation, but what would you do with your life? How would that change your today if you had no fear? And so if we can get curious around that and just question, what if that could actually happen? What if that was my reality? What would I do? Right? Because often we try and figure things out with our mind, right? We try and figure things out, make it logical, make it make sense, make it not too big and scary, and play safe around that. And so sometimes we just need to create the space, right? We need to create the time, we need to create the space and allowing things to unfold the way they're meant to, rather than pushing it down because of fear, putting it off because we don't know what to do next, or maybe our next step is just too big and it's too scary. So often we just push it away, right? But if we can get into that space and just ask ourselves that question, create the quiet, create the calm, create the peace, and just ask. No distractions, no noise, because our answers don't come when we're busy. The answers come in the quiet, in the serenity, in the solitude, when we can really hear what's on our heart and what's in our soul that God wants us to hear. And then we just listen with patience, with understanding about whatever that answer is that's going to come to the surface for us. And it's really helpful to have a journal handy and a pen just so that we can write down ideas, because often we get these messages, we get the ideas that come in and we forget them. I forget them anyways. So it is good to write them down, and then we can see. So if we're in a practice of this, if we have a daily habit of listening and creating that space, we can create some of our future and allow that to be present with whatever that is for us. So hopefully that it's helpful for you. We don't have to figure out everything right now. We don't have to have the next 10 steps. We just need to know what's next for us today. And what is that next best step that I can do today? And so that's where the clarity is, when we start asking these questions, when we get into that quiet space and just listen. And don't be afraid of what comes up, right? Because maybe it's something that we just need to break down, something that we need to process, and maybe it's something that we have to ask more questions about. And so if that sparked any questions in you and you'd like to review any of that, I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to talk about vision. I'd love to talk about clarity and just creativity in creating a future that we love, creating our dream life in that space. So if this is resonating with you, I'd love if you subscribe to this channel and follow me. I'll put a link to my website down in the description, and I would love to chat with you. Take care.